All right, so for today's guided notes, we are going to be looking at some really important vocabulary for our geometry unit. So we're going to be doing almost like two sets of guided notes on polygons and quadrilaterals. Now, a lot of this stuff might be review. Some of it, however, might be news, and we're going to kind of fly, so get ready. All right, so what I'd like you to do now is pause the video while you make your polygons guided notes look like this. You're just filling it in. All right, so you're back. So your guided notes now look like this. Now, I'd like to just point out some important highlights from this. So we have, of course, the different types of polygons. So poly meaning many, gon meaning shape. So this just means, polygon just means a many-sided shape. So you have then the name of that shape, and then how many total sides there are, and then they've counted up the sides for you. Now, you'll notice some interesting things about the polygons that are shown here. Some of them are regular polygons, meaning all of the side lengths are the same and the interior angles are the same measurement. But then there's a couple of examples like this heptagon, dodecagon, and decagon. These are irregular polygons. And that isn't to say that you couldn't have irregular hexagons or irregular pentagons. They're just showing you kind of the variety. Irregular polygons of any sided number would then be ones where they have different number of sides. Maybe they have concave angles, or maybe they're complex. Maybe the side lengths are different. And so on and so forth. Most of the time when you think of a polygon, though, you're going to think of the regular sided shape, so ones that have the same length of sides. But that isn't always true. Sometimes they can be irregular, and they're still classified as that type of polygon. Some examples that are not polygons that you've probably seen are circles. Any shape that has a curve would not be a polygon. Any shape that is not closed, so if this were to be like an open side, that would not be a polygon. And then lastly, three-dimensional shapes. So your spheres, your cubes, your triangular prisms, those things. Those are 3D shapes. Polygons are specifically two-dimensional shapes. Okay, now you have a very special type of polygon, which is the four-sided shape. That's called a quadrilateral. Now, quadrilaterals are this big category of shapes, and they all have different properties and categories. So what I'd like you to do now is you're going to pause the video while you write down the key vocabulary and symbols of these quadrilaterals. Okay, so you're back. All right, so you have basically like the three main types, or three like overarching categories of quadrilaterals. You have the parallelogram. This one's probably like the most famous, I guess you could say. Then we have the trapezoid, and then a kite. Okay, so I'll start with a parallelogram. So a parallelogram just means a four-sided shape where the opposite sides are equal and parallel, and the opposite angles are equal. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So the opposite sides, so this side and that side, they are parallel and equal. So we have this set of symbols here. Do you see like the little ones that look like an arrow? That means that I'm saying that these two lines are parallel. If I put a little arrow that goes that way, like that matches, I'm saying these lines are parallel. Now, the one within the lines, like this, that means that these lines have the same length. So any line on this shape where I give it two little notches, that means it's the same length. So in a parallelogram, opposite sides are parallel and equal. And then these opposite sides are parallel and equal. So then I can show that they're parallel by doing the double arrow, and that matches with that little double arrow symbol. And then a single line notch is going to match with that one. So I'm saying that that's the same length. You can see that they also have the same type of symbols for the angles. So you have like the double arc and then the double arc. So the opposite angles are equal. And then here you have a single arc and a single arc. So I'm saying that those angle measurements are equal. And then a little side note, diagonals bisect each other. So that means that this line where this diagonal crosses that one, it bisects it. So that means that it is completely in half. Okay, so that's the definition of a parallelogram. All right, now parallelograms can be further broken down into these two shapes, the rectangle and the rhombus. So a rectangle is just a special parallelogram, but it has right angles. Okay, so same idea with the opposite sides are parallel and equal. Opposite sides are parallel and equal, but this time all of the angles are right angles. And then you have a rhombus, where this is all the same characteristics of the parallelogram still hold true, but in this one, all of the sides are of equal length. So all four sides of a rhombus are equal. Okay, but you're thinking, well, isn't that just a square? Well, not necessarily, because it can be stretched and pinched like this. So the opposite angles are equal, but the adjacent or consecutive angles are not equal. So it's like a square that has been like squished or stretched. All right, now if a shape fulfills the criteria of both a rectangle and a rhombus, that means that it's a square. So that means that all the sides are equal, it has right angles, the opposite sides are parallel, the opposite sides are equal, and yeah, that's what makes a square. All right, so then we come over here. Well, let's look at a trapezoid. A trapezoid's definition, there's only one pair of opposite sides are parallel. So here we have this set of opposite sides are parallel, but these ones are not. So in a parallelogram, they would have to be parallel. But in a trapezoid, they can be different. All right, so then a trapezoid can be broken down into two different types. You have the isosceles trapezoid, which is probably the one that you're most used to seeing, where the opposite sides are, okay, so this set of parallel lines, but then the ones that are not parallel, they are the same length. So it's almost like a symmetrical trapezoid. And then you can see here the angle measures, those match, and then those two angle measures match. Then the other type you have here, the right trapezoid. So right as in right angle, like a 90-degree angle. So these would be 90-degree angles like this. So it's basically one half of it looks like it would be a rectangle, and then the other half looks like what you would envision as your characteristic trapezoid. But it's still a trapezoid because you have one set of parallel opposite sides and then one set that are not parallel. All right, now the last kind of shape we have for a quadrilateral is the kite. So a kite has exactly two pairs of consecutive sides that are equal. So that means that the length of this and this is the same, and the length of that and that is the same. And notice they've used these little symbols where they're saying the little notches, so they're saying that's the same length as that. And the opposite angles are also going to be equal. So that's why you have those little notches there. Okay, so that's just a review of that key vocabulary. If you have any questions on what is classified as different shapes, polygons, or quadrilaterals, join me for office hours. Other than that, you can jump into your practice set today, which is going to be an IXL exercise. All right, have fun.